I think the economics is quite clear and convincing, at least to me, that if you want to do something meaningful for climate change and you want to get meaningful reductions, you really need a price on carbon. Now, we went the cap and trade route. I've always preferred carbon tax to cap and trade for various reasons that I could get into. But I think a cap and trade is also, for all practical purposes, is close enough to a carbon tax and something that's worthwhile. The interesting thing is I've been, previous to being at Brookings, I was at Georgetown for many years teaching this stuff. And the economists, you can give a nice lecture on kind of comparing and contrasting cap and trade and carbon tax, and kind of to the extent politics comes up, it's always, well, cap and trade is much more politically feasible. And we did have some experience at that, especially with the sulfur dioxide market, which I think was widely seen as a success. Now we live in a world where cap and trade is not considered politically feasible, and maybe this is just stubbornness, but that puts me back to a carbon taxes. If I'm going to lose the politics of it, I might as well go with my preferred policy. Having said that, and the kind of movement forward, and I tried to frame this in the article, I do think it's a long shot, at least in the short term, especially given the state of the economy right now, that we're going to get meaningful climate policy in the form of something like a carbon tax. My hope, and on my optimistic days, the things I try and cling to, is the flip side of my despair about our fiscal situation. And so I do think the next administration will have to act in short order on fiscal reform. And I do think particularly on tax reform. I think tax reform, the good thing about having such an inefficient, complex, unfair tax system is it does give you a lot of scope for negotiation. And one would hope that would, somewhere in there, you can get a compromise. And the way I framed it in my piece was that a carbon tax could be part of tax reform policy. And in fact, I increasingly think it has to be part of a tax reform policy if you are going to do it. Kind of putting it in isolation, I think, doesn't work very well and has too many political hurdles. Part of a semi-grand package of a tax reform where you're shifting, where you need revenue, and this is one source of revenue that could be used to offset deficits or offset other marginal tax rates, I think could be part of a kind of a grand compromise there.